Hi, this is Gary Cato with Project SOS, and I'm very proud to sponsor this episode of Salute. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello and welcome to Central Florida Salute YouTube. I'm your host, Bob Peters, and I have a gentleman with me that did 28 years in service. He is also a very good karaoke singer, but we're not going there with this Bill. Bill Capps. Bill, welcome to Salute. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself and about your military career? Where were you born, and how did you wind up in service?
I was born in Durham, North Carolina in 1940, and I attended school up until the 9th grade, and I had to quit school because I was working in a cotton mill to help support my family, and I was trying to work and go to school, and it didn't work out because the school would let me out at 2 o'clock because I had to be at the cotton mill by 2:30 to go to work, 2:30 to 10:30.
Wow.
And it was hard. It was hard to keep up with homework and stuff because I was up until 11 o'clock at night, and I'd go back in school the next day, and they said, "Why didn't you do your homework?" I don't know. And so I finally just quit, and I wanted to go in the service, and I asked my mother to let me go in the Army, and she said, "No, I'm not going to sign for you to go in the Army." So I said, "Well, please sign for me to go in the National Guard." I had a good friend that went in the National Guard, and he wanted me to go in the National Guard, so that's what I did. And as soon as I got in the National Guard, I said, what have I got to do to get on active duty?
You were like 17 at this time?
I was 17, and the sergeant said, "You get it said, I'll get it done." So I told him, yep, it's said, I want to go. So that day he put me on active duty, and I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training, and I went through basic training, and then they gave me a set of orders to Texas to go to medical school at Fort Sam Houston. Mm-hmm. So I went to Fort Sam Houston for 6 months, going through medical school, learn how to be a medic. And after that was my 6 months active duty was over by then. So I came back to Durham, and I met the girl that I married.
Well, how did you get in the Navy then?
Well,
I mean, here we are.
After we got married and had a child, my son Gordon was born, and we moved to Shelby, North Carolina, which is a very small town back then. It's probably a little bigger now, but Shelby was a very small town, and I was looking for a job and couldn't find one. And my wife's mother and dad were very prominent in Shelby. Everybody knew them, and it wasn't long before everybody knew me. And I was looking for a job. I couldn't find one, so I decided, hey, it's time for me to go have a beer. So I started looking for a bar, and they said, "No, there's no bars around here." And I said, "Why not?" They said, "Oh, this is Dry County."
Yes.
I said, "Well, how can I get a beer?" They said, "Well, just go down to Blacksburg, which is just a few miles down the road, and there's a bar down there on the left. You can have a beer in there." So I took off and went down to Blacksburg, and having a couple of beers in this bar, and a couple of guys said, "Hey, let's go down to another bar? I said, okay. They said, just ride with us. Okay. I piled in the back seat to ride with them. And as soon as we pulled out, we got pulled over. And the police were locking this guy up that was driving for driving drunk. And so I got out of the car and started back over to my car. And the police officer said, where are you going? I said, I'm going back to North Carolina. He said, no, you're not going. He said, you're going to jail. I said, why? He said, public drunkenness. And I was a smart aleck, and I said, what do you mean, public drunkenness? I said, we're not in the public, we're in the woods.
We're in the back of a car.
Well, the next thing you know, I had my hands behind me, and I'm in the back of a police car. Went to jail. So my bail was $15 back then, which was a lot of money back then. I was lucky if I had $2 or $3 in my wallet at any time. And so I wound up in jail, and I called my wife. Of course, they gave me one phone call, and I called my wife. She was in Durham. They hadn't gone to Shelby yet, and I said, you need to send me $15 down here to Blacksburg, South Carolina, because I'm in jail. Well, why are you in jail? I said, well, they locked me up for drinking, being drunk. She said, well, you just get out the best way you got in. And wouldn't send me the $15. Well, finally, after a few days, she felt sorry for me, and she sent the $15 and bailed me out. Well, I was back in Shelby. By then, her and her mother, or she and her mother, were back in Shelby. And I was out looking for a job. Nobody would hire me. Every place I went, they'd say, you've been in jail. I said, how did you know? Well, everybody knows. Everybody knows in Shelby what's going on.
Oh, yeah, small towns like that.
And they knew I'd been in jail. Nobody would hire me. So I went down to the recruiter, Army recruiter, and I said, I want to join the Army, rejoin the Army. And he said, well, let me give you this test. He gave me a test. I filled it out and put down there all my information, you know. He looked at the thing. He said, I can't put you in the Army because you married with a kid. He said, if you didn't have a child, I could put you in the Army. Okay, so I walked out of the door, and I had this paper in my hand, and the Navy recruiter was right next door. He said, son, you want a cup of coffee? I said, I'm not going in the Navy. He said, I didn't ask you if you're going in the Navy. I asked you if you wanted a cup of coffee. I said, yeah, I'll drink a cup of coffee with you. So I went over there, I got a cup of coffee, and he started talking to me about the Navy. He said, what were you in the Army? I said, I was an E3. I can put you in the Navy as an E3 instead of starting out as an E1. You'll start out as an E3.
Oh, that's good.
And I said, well, that's good. I said, when can you put me in? He said, I can have you gone by 3 o'clock this afternoon. I said, okay, let's do that. And I signed the name. And he said, go home and get you a couple pair of underwear to last you until you get your uniforms. Okay, so I went back to the house where my wife and my mother were, my wife's mother. And I said, well, I found a job.
Oh, boy.
She said, good, where? I said, United States Navy. She said, you're joking. I said, no, honey, I'm not joking. I joined the Navy. Well, you just joined by yourself then. She said, don't expect me to go with you. Okay. So I went on.
I'm going to miss it.
I went on in, went to boot camp in Great Lakes. And after boot camp was over, I called her and said, you know, I've got a set of orders to Norfolk, Virginia. She said, well, good. She said, come on home and I may go with you. She said, that sounds like fun. I said, well, it will be fun. I said, I'll be there. I'm on the bus in a few minutes. So I got on the bus and went home. I guess they gave me 2 weeks leave, and I spent the 2 weeks there, and we left and went to Norfolk. And I started out in the Navy. They started me off in shore duty. a place called Sinkland Fleet, Commander-in-Chief Atlantic Fleet. It was a place that they, for the admirals. It was a place they run the fleet from.
It's kind of like major headquarters.
Yeah, and they put me in there as a switchboard operator. Taught me how to operate a switchboard, pulling cords and pushing cords. Well, I was there for several months, and I got in a lot of trouble because I like to drink, and I'd go out in town and drink and get in trouble and have to go see the captain. And finally, the last time I was up there, he said, "What do you want, young man?" I said, "Captain, I joined the Navy to go on a ship." I said, "I didn't join the Navy to come here and sit behind a switchboard." He said, "I'll take care of that." He said, "You got a set of orders on the way." Well, I got a set of orders to the USS Krishna, Krishna, ARL 38. ARL does not stand for Atomic Rocket Launcher. It stands for Auxiliary Repair Landing Craft.
Oh, okay.
So we fixed boats. Boats would come alongside us to get repairs done. And we mainly sat at the pier. But I did almost 4 years on that. And then I transferred to the Terrebonne Parish, which is the LST, 1156, I believe. Transferred over there, and I had a medical problem, got put in the hospital for a while, like 30 days, and they said, "Well, if you're in the hospital for more than 30 days, you can get transferred off of your ship." Okay, so I transferred to the USS Manly. USS Manly. That's DD 940, and that's the one we went to Vietnam on. And well, we made a little med cruise first, and
Now, you tell the listeners, the Manly was a destroyer, right?
Manly was a USS Manly. DD 940 was a destroyer, Sherman-class destroyer.
Okay.
And we had 3 5-inch 54 guns on there, one on the bow, one on the O1 level in the rear, in the stern, and one on the stern. And then we had a 3-inch 50 also on the O1 level, right next to the 5-inch 54. Well, 5-inch 54, we were doing gunfire support, 1966. Well, we were doing it, yeah. And December the 7th, 1966, we were doing gunfire support in Vietnam. And the first mount exploded. We had 3 guys in there. They got burned bad. And they went to general quarters, and I saw them coming down the deck, and I could see they had skin hanging off their arms.
They're in tough shape.
And they were in bad shape. So, they just loaded them up they sent them out on a helicopter. And then we went to Kaohsiung because we went in there to see if they could fix the gun. They said there's no way to fix that gun, no possible way to fix that gun. So we went back aboard and we put plywood around where the black plates had been blown off, painted it haze gray to make it look like the gun was ready.
Yeah.
And we went back on the gun line, and we were firing Mount 2 and Mount 3. And this went on until March 67, March the 17th, I believe it was, March 17th of 1967, I was in Mount 3. I'd been there all night, and we were doing gunfire support, and we were firing 1 round a minute. And when you fire 1 round a minute, the barrel gets hot.
Yeah, I bet.
And every couple of hours, we'd have to go out and get a hose and hose down the barrel to cool it down. Well, about 6 o'clock, I think it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I was supposed to get off at 7:30. My mount blew up with me, and I was in the bubble in the top. I was called the one-man control operator. I was safety man, safety observer, safety man, and one-man control, which means I moved the mount wherever they wanted it, and then I turned it loose, and the FTs, fire control technicians, locked up with the mount, and they would move it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it blew me out the top, probably more than 40 feet in the air, set me on fire, and I fell back down on the gun, and I was burned, and I was burning, still on fire. And I knew my way around on top of that gun pretty good because I'd painted it many times and cleaned it. So I swung myself around and found the ladder, and I could feel the ladder. I couldn't see anything, but I felt the ladder. And I swung around, got on the ladder, and came down off the gun. This gun is like 15, 16 feet off the ground. So I got off the gun, went inside the ship, went into the head, which is civilian bathroom.
Yeah.
And got a sink and was throwing water on my face and my shoulders because I could see that I was on fire. Then I went to sick bay, and I went in to see the doc at sick bay, and he said, have a seat. He said, I said, well, where's Daniels? That was the other guy that was in there. There was three of us in there. John Daniels was a black guy. He was in there, and that's the reason I wanted to be in the mount with him, because he was very, very knowledgeable, and he taught me a lot about the gun. Mm-hmm. And Charlie Hunter was in there. He was white, but the three of us were in there, and they were down on the deck, and I was up in the bubble, and I couldn't find Daniels, and he said, I said, where's Dan? He said, he's up in the wardroom. I said, what's he doing in the wardroom? They said, that wardroom is where the officers go to eat. They got big tables in there, and they all go in there to eat.
Yeah.
So they took Daniels and Hunter in there and put them up on a table, and then they finally took me in there and put me on a table, and they started an IV on me. And they called for somebody to come get us. And, of course, they came along in a boat. They didn't send a chopper in. They sent a boat in to get us. And we got on the boat, and they took us into someplace in Vietnam. I have no idea where it was, but then Corpsman told me, you're going to the hospital in Da Nang. Okay. So they put me in the back of an ambulance, like an old World War II ambulance.
Yeah.
It was three high, and I was on the very top. And I had to, the overhead was right here. And,
yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, were the other two guys in there with you?
Yeah, they were in
all
there.
Three
also, we were all three in there, and there was other people in there. They picked up two other troops inland. And then they flew us out by helicopter, and that's how we wound up in this ambulance. But I remember the corpsman. When we flew out, the helicopter does this,
Yeah, right.
Goes to the side, and they had me strapped on the outside of the helicopter, and I'm looking down at these people shooting at us, and I said, oh, Lord, they're trying to kill me, and I'm already burned. Please get out of here. Turn this helicopter around, go somewhere. I'm hollering and crying and screaming. And they finally got me into Da Nang, into the hospital. Hospital was just a Quonset hut. Mm. And I was in there in the hospital there in Da Nang, and a nurse came over to me, and she said, General Walt wants to see you. I'm thinking, what did I do? Why does General want to see me? She said, General Walt wants to come and visit you and we want to make sure, because they had me doped up real good.
I would imagine.
And I said, why does this general want to come see me? She said, he wants to visit you, and we want to make sure you know who he is when he gets here. I said, okay. She said, who is it? I said, General Walt. She said, okay, you know. When he comes here, he's going to ask you, do you know who I am? Okay. So here he comes. He came up to the bed, and he said, young man, do you know who I am? I said, yes, sir. He said, who am I? I said, you're General Walt. He said, do you know what my job is? I said, job?
You're a general.
I said, I got a job, you've got a position. And he cracked up. He thought that was funny. He said, well, son, he said, I'm here.
He laughed.
He did laugh. He
Yeah,
said,
it's a
I'm
good
here
thing.
he said, I'm here to give you a Purple Heart. I said, General, I don't know whether I deserve a Purple Heart or not. He said, son, who is the general here? I said, you are, sir. He said, I know more about what happened to you than you know what happened to you. He said, so I'm here to present you with this Purple Heart. And they took a picture of me, and it's an old photograph. It was Polaroid, and I've still got a copy of it at my house. It showed me all bandaged up. My head was bandaged. My arms were bandaged. I was bandaged all over because I was burned all over. And he presented me with a Purple Heart, and I don't know how long I stayed in Da Nang, but it was however long it was too long. And they finally said, well, we're getting you out of here. I said, am I going back to the States? No, you're not going to the States. You're not able to go to the States. You couldn't make it to the States. We're sending you to the Philippines, to Clark Air Base. Okay, so they put me on a plane, sent me to Clark Air Base. I got into Clark Air Base, and I was waiting. A lot of people were apparently getting hurt and going there.
There was a war going on.
There was a war.
Yeah.
And they had me out in the hallway, and the doctor came over, and he said, I can't do anything for you. He said, you need to be in Japan. You need to go to the burn center in Japan. I said, Doc, I don't want to go to Japan. He said, you're going to Japan. That's it. They hauled me out of there, put me on another helicopter, and put me on a plane, took me to Japan, to the 106 General Army Hospital. And I was in there for a long time. I can't remember, I can't tell you how long, but it was a long time. And they would come, and you could hear them coming. You could hear them coming down the hall, because you'd hear the guys screaming. They were pulling the bandages off, and when they pull the bandages off, the skin comes with it, and you scream and you holler. You can't help it. And that was bad. I was there for a pretty good while, and like I say, too long. And finally they said, well, we're going to send you over to Yokosuka Naval Hospital. Okay, so they heloed me over to Yokosuka Naval Hospital. I went in there, got in there, and the first thing the doctor said, he said, did you just come out of the bush in Vietnam? I said, no, sir. I said, I just came out of the 106 General Hospital and out of Da Nang. He said, well, how long has it been since you had a bath or a shave? I said, I don't know. Long time. I said, there ain't nothing, I don't have anywhere that they can bathe. He said, you've got someplace they can bathe. He told the nurse, he said, give this man a shave, brush his teeth, give him a haircut, and give him a bath wherever he's not burned. So they got me all cleaned up, really good. And then he said, he came in and said, we're taking you to the OR, emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
I said, operating room.
Yeah, operating room, yeah.
I said, what am I doing going in the OR? He said,
gonna be operated on.
I'll tell you later. And so they took me in they took me in there and put me to sleep. And when I woke up, all my bandages were on. but they were new bandages. It didn't hurt. They didn't rip them off like they did at the Army hospital. And it was just wonderful because I go in there and go to sleep and it changed my bandages. That was wonderful. Well, that went on for a good while. And then finally they said, we're going to send you back to the States. I don't know how long it was, but it was a long, long time.
Well, I'm sure burns take a long time.
Yeah, I had gotten to where I was able to do certain things. I could at least hold something to eat or something to drink, but I had to have some help with it. And they shipped me back to. Before that, the doctor said in the Navy hospital, his name was he was a full captain, and I'm trying to think of his name. I can't remember the man's name, but you know,
he was a captain.
He was a captain, and he was in the Navy, and he said, "We've got to fatten you up, young man." He said, "You've lost too much weight. I only weighed 128 pounds."
Wow, you're pretty tall.
And I was when I got hurt, I weighed 215.
Yeah.
And I'd lost down to 128. He said, "We got to fatten you up." He said, "Do you like beer?" I said, "Yes, sir."
You're talking to the right guy here.
I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like beer." He said, "Okay." He said, "We're gonna start feeding you beer." Well, the next morning they came and brought me two beers, 16 ounces. I said, "I can't drink them. Bring me some coffee or orange juice or something. You know, that's too early to be drinking beer." Noon, they came and brought two more. I told them put them in my locker. I had a little locker next to my bed. They put them in my locker, and that night they brought me two more. I said, "All right, now I can drink them." And my hands were bandaged up, so I couldn't hold the beer very well. So I'd get the corpsman to come over and hold the beer for me and put a straw in it so I could drink it. And I'd drink the beers through a straw. And then after a while, they shipped me back to the States. Put me in Portsmouth, Virginia, Portsmouth Hospital.
Did you ask for a six-pack to go?
No, I didn't have to. They already had the order in. And my wife drove up from Charleston because she was living in Charleston. She drove up to see me. And she came in the room. Of course, this is the first time she's seen me in way over a year. And she came in there and she was looking at me and holding my hand and crying and carrying on. And the nurse came in with a tray with two big, tall beers on it. My wife said, "What is this?" I said, "Honey, you got to know how to treat them. They'll treat you good." She said, "This is ridiculous. You drinking beer in the hospital?" I said, "They want to fatten me up." She said, "Well, I can see that. You've lost so much you can't even hold your pajamas on."
A man's got to do what a man's got to do.
You know, you got to do what the doctor says.
The doctor ordered, yeah.
So I was in there, and she did not like the fact that I was in Portsmouth Naval Hospital, and she was in Charleston, South Carolina, living there. She said, "I can't go back and forth." She got on the phone and she called Washington. I don't know who she talked to up there, but that day they transferred me to Beaufort, South Carolina, which is like an hour away from Charleston.
They have beer?
Yes, they kept giving me beer. And anyway, she could come down and visit me.
Yeah, that's good.
And finally, after several months of being in there with skin grafts and everything, they finally said, "You're ready to go home." Well, they put me out on 60% disability because I couldn't use my left arm. I'd lost so much muscle up here, I couldn't even raise it. I'd have to raise it up like this. So they put me out on 60% disability, but 60% of nothing is still nothing.
Yeah.
And I was E5, and my retirement, my temporary retirement was $120 a month.
I don't cut it.
My rent was $130 a month. And I said, no, this ain't gonna cut. This ain't gonna cut it. So I stayed out about 2 years doing different jobs. I started out in the post office. Couldn't do that because I couldn't use my arm.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me to lift boxes and all. I couldn't do that. So I decided the best thing for me to do is try to go back in the military. So I started working with a rubber ball, and I built my muscle back up to where I could use my arm a little bit. And I went back and said, I want to be reevaluated to go back in the military. And they said, okay, if we can reevaluate you. If you're physically good, we could let you back in. But if you have done anything like go in debt real bad or anything, said they won't let you in. I said, I haven't gone in debt. I said, I don't owe anything except my rent and everything. They said, okay. So they reevaluated me, found me fit for duty, put me back in the Navy. And I went back and they sent me to USS Salinan, ATF 161, which is a fleet tug. What we did is we went down to Gitmo and pulled targets for other ships to shoot at. And we hoped they're shooting at the tug, not at us.
Yeah, we hope you have no rookie there.
But that was...
Whoops, I missed.
I was on there a year, and I finally called my detailer, and I said, I think I probably need to have some shore duty. He said, well, let me look and see how much shore duty you've had. I said, I haven't had any. And he looked it up. He said, you should have been on shore duty before you ever went to Vietnam. I said, well, I wasn't. So they sent me to Great Lakes as an instructor at the gun school. And I was up there for about 2.5 years. And I tried twice to terminate shore duty because I hated it. I loved the duty. I loved teaching. And believe it or not, I taught math and positioning mechanisms, and I taught algebra. And I had never learned algebra in school, but I had to learn it because I had to teach it.
Now, did you get like a GED when you were in the service?
Yes,
or
I did.
Because you said you left, you didn't graduate high school. You were...
Yeah, I went and got a GED,
okay.
and when I went to instructor duty, they said that the instructor school that you go through is equivalent of 2 years of college.
Oh, okay.
And you can't prove it, but that's what they said. Anyway, I stayed 2.5 years up there. Finally got them to terminate me and send me back to sea. They sent me to the USS Incheon, LPH-12.
Now, what kind of ship was that?
It's a helicopter carrier.
Oh, okay.
And in Great Lakes, I had made first class.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to the Incheon, I went up for chief the first time. And the first time I got a real good score. I said, oh man, I got it. I know I'm gonna make chief. Didn't get it. The next time my score was just barely over the score limit. And they picked me up for chief. So I made chief. And then I went to a few other ships after that. I started off at the Spiegel Grove, I believe it was.
Yeah, you told me before you served on a number of ships.
Yeah.
Like 20-something or whatever?
No, 7.
7 ships. Oh, okay. So one of them was the Midway?
One of them was a Midway, and one was a Blue Ridge. Blue Ridge was the last one I was on. I retired from the Blue Ridge. But I was on the Blue Ridge, I was on the Midway, I was on the Spiegel Grove, I was on the Terrebonne Parish, and I was on the Fleet Tug, which is a ship. I got told that by no uncertain terms when I went on board and around the CO, who was a lieutenant, I said, "It's a pretty nice boat you got here, Captain." He said, "This is not a boat, son. This is a ship." Looked like a boat to me. You can see from one end of it to the other. But anyway, I've learned
You were
that
a troublemaker.
I learned it was not a boat.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like I say, I started out on the Krishna ARL-38. So I think that was all the ships I was on, 7 of them.
When you got out of the Navy to pursue another occupation somewhere, you did, what, 28 years total, you know?
Yes, I got out of the Navy after 28 years and retired in '86. And my retirement as a chief was $1,100 a month. You can't live on that
No, sir.
when you got children, wife and children. So I went looking for a job. I applied for every job they had on base. Couldn't find a job. Nobody would hire me. Then they said, "We got a job at the fire department, firefighter. You want a job as a firefighter?" I said, "Yeah." I mean, I'd been burned, but
Yeah.
I needed a job.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went over to interview for the job, and the fire chief was a grumpy old guy. I went in there to visit or interview with him, and he said, "Look," he said, "I know what people have told you. They've told you that I've got to hire you because you're a vet, and I've got to hire you because of this and that." He said, "I'll hire you if I think you're going to be a good firefighter, and that's it." I said, "Yes, sir." I walked out of there. I said, I won't get this damn job. You know, that's no way I'm ever going to get this job. 2 weeks later, I got called. They hired me.
Yeah. How long did you do with the fire department?
15 years.
15 years. I think, speaking of time, I think we're getting close. We're running out of time.
Well, I had to
I'll
retire.
tell you what, it's been fun talking to you.
I had to retire early because I had a heart attack. Couldn't get my breath. I put my air pack on. Couldn't get my breath. But I retired at 15 years, and I'm doing very good now. I'm happy.
And you do a very good job of karaoke singing.
Thank you.
But we got to go, and I want to thank you for coming on here.
Okay, Bob.
And I know you're in the area now, but you're going to be moving out of the area. I'll tell you, if you're ever back this way, you got to call me up, and we got to have that beer together.
All right.
All right? So we got to say goodbye, and this is how we do it. You follow my lead, all right? Look right over there. To all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time. Nice job, Bill.
Since 2009, Project SOS has assisted our veterans both overseas and here at home to overcome medical issues, homelessness, and disabilities. Initially, our efforts resulted in over 22 clinics opened in Iraq and Afghanistan. Recently, as troops have been withdrawn, we have concentrated on issues here at home. During this past year, we have been able to distribute 42 motorized wheelchairs and numerous mobility devices to our local veterans who have served in World War II and up to and including Afghanistan. We continue to offer solutions to our local homeless veterans in the Ocala National Forest and other Central Florida locations. Project SOS Support Our Soldiers needs your assistance to continue helping a growing homeless veterans population. Over-the-counter medications and personal hygiene supplies are acutely needed. Your financial aid will greatly increase the support they so desperately need.